AV Shop Talk, Episode 12.
Podcasting from Boston, Massachusetts and Los Angeles, California, this is AV Shop Talk, covering the latest audiovisual trends and emerging technologies. This is where the AV pros come to talk shop. With your hosts, Nate Schneider and Jason Griffin.
Hello there, and welcome back to another episode of AV Shop Talk. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us. I'm Jason Griffin, and I'm joined as usual by Nate. Nate, how are you?
I'm doing well tonight. Good to be chatting with you and talking shop.
Yeah, I'm excited to be here. We've got a really fun episode here, but before we jump into that, I think we're sort of celebrating kind of our sense of community here as we enter into a new year. And I believe we had some international listeners, Nate, that you actually wanted to kind of give a shout out to here.
Yeah, I was looking over the Twitter followers, and I love doing the Follow Fridays, especially for the new followers, and just giving shout outs to people that are paying attention to the podcast. And I started realizing, we've got someone from Singapore, somebody from the UK, from London. We got another person from East Africa, from like Uganda. And so I don't know. I just wanted to give some people some shout outs. So Systems Integration Asia at Spinworks_SIA. Thank you for tuning in from Singapore. That's pretty cool. And we've got Kevin McLaughlin over in London, over in the UK, and his Twitter handle is at KEV_McLaughlin. I won't spell that for you. You'll have to figure that one out.
Have to sort that one out.
Well, no, that's not fair, is it? Because McLaughlin could be spelled a number of ways, right? So
help him out. All
right, I'll help him out. It's at KEV_MCLOUGHLIN. Thank you for tuning in all the way from London in the UK. And our last shout out is to at ProAV Africa over in East Africa. So this is kind of a cool thing that people are paying attention to us from outside of the US. I mean, when we started the podcast, I don't think I ever realized that, we might have listeners outside of our country. I don't know why that never dawned on me. I guess it should have, but
yeah, no, it is interesting. I mean, I think we all get sort of caught up in our own little bubble in our world that we work in and operate in, and sometimes it's tough to remember that there's all these markets not only outside of our cities but outside of our country too, and we're not the only place where people are making a living, doing AV work. And we really appreciate everybody tuning in, but just think that's really kind of neat that we have people listening from literally all over the world. So just wanted to give a quick shout out and thank them. And really, speaking of community and just having people tune in, I think that's really sort of the gist of this episode. We had a really great conversation with a gentleman by the name of Ernie Beck. And Ernie is I think his title that he uses is the founder. Is that correct? Of Integrate Baltimore?
Oh no, it was on LinkedIn it's the owner, but his
that's
official
right.
title is Club Master.
Club Master, that's right. And Ernie is in addition to being a full-time, professional AV consultant, he is the Club Master of Integrate Baltimore, and that is a club that he started to just kind of get together with people in the industry. He has a bunch of friends, from previous companies, and it's kind of just grown from being him and a few of his friends from previous companies getting together, once a quarter to have a beer or something, and now it's kind of actually it's really kind of taken a foothold in that market of Baltimore, and has really become a great a place and opportunity for people to get together and network and catch up. And I just think it's really cool when people take the time to actually get together in person and just what can come of that. I think it can be really special.
Yeah, and what surprised me about this interview, and I won't spoil it for people that want to listen to the whole thing, but there were some surprising things about. They do a lot more than just get together and have drinks and appetizers and network. They go beyond that to give back to the community in a number of ways, which I thought was, a surprising and awesome thing that, these guys are doing over in Integrate Baltimore. So
Yeah,
that was
absolutely.
really impressed by that.
Yeah, I think a lot of good can come of this, not only for the people participating in the group, but for our industry at large, and as well as you've kind of alluded to our communities, And so, to that end, we would encourage people to really kind of, as you listen to this interview, sort of think to yourself about maybe doing this sort of thing in your market, if it's not done already, or if it is. Getting active in it. And so we've actually created a PDF that we'll link to in our show notes for this episode that has a checklist that you can follow if you're interested in doing this sort of thing. It just has some of the bullet points that we cover with Ernie, some of the things to get you started, maybe some of the pitfalls to watch out for as you consider maybe starting a club like this for yourself, which we would encourage more people to do.
Yeah, just a little quick start guide, a one-page PDF. If you listen to the episode and you think, hey, I might want to start one of these up in my city, just start a little Integrate meetup group, just download the PDF and, print it out, and it'll help remind you and keep you motivated to, get something going if you've got the time and energy and willpower to put something like this together. I think that would be awesome. And we will help you spread the word if you do. So definitely.
Yeah, most definitely.
Reach out to AV Shop Talk, and we'll help promote your events and spread the word however we can.
Yep. And that PDF, as well as the notes from this interview, can be found at avshoptalk.com/episode 12. So without further ado, we will jump into our interview here with Ernie Beck.
AV Shop Talk.
Jason and I are pleased to welcome Ernie Beck to the podcast. How you doing, Ernie?
I'm good. How's it going, guys?
It's going very well. Now, Ernie is a senior sales engineer at Cinero. Is that how you pronounce it?
Cinero, you got it right.
All right. Mm-hmm. And not only that, he is the owner, quote owner. That's what on LinkedIn. That's what your title is. I don't know if that's how you feel about it.
It's actually Club Master is my self-dubbed title.
Club Master. Okay, I'm glad we cleared that up. So Ernie is Club Master of Integrate Baltimore, which is a LinkedIn group, and this is very interesting to me. So we're going to find out more about Integrate Baltimore and what that actually is. But before we dive into that, let's find out more about Ernie specifically. So you're currently with Cinero, and I have to ask this question because depending on what firm you're at, a sales engineer can be any number of things with any number of responsibilities. So what's your day-to-day general job description? What do you do in the AV world?
Sure, that's a good question. So the term senior sales engineer in my capacity is kind of a bifurcated role. It splits both business development and marketing with system design. So my day-to-day is going out and meeting with new clients and developing prospective clients, looking for new business, looking for where the opportunity is. And then once I'm engaged with those clients, working with them to develop comprehensive system designs and roadmaps, and really become a good technical resource from them from a technology perspective.
Okay, so you're definitely more customer facing, because I've heard of sales engineers that are just kind of like locked up in a back room somewhere pumping out bills of material,
Yeah, no, definitely, very client driven, very client focused, customer service focused. But one of the things I like to pride myself on is also leveraging that balancing that rather with a technical background, because I don't want to just go meet with a client and try and push things on them. I really want to get to understand what their objectives are and what their motives are for technology use, and have my technical background be able to support leading them down different paths and have those technical discussions.
Yeah, and I think that's the key right there is to have your both feet on either side of the fence there. You got a little bit of sales, but you've also got the AV knowledge to back it up, which is like that's huge. So
yeah, it's kind of left brain, right brain type of thing. One's more of the creative, outgoing side. One's more of the numbers, lines, tangents, that type of thing.
Yeah. Okay. So great. So how long have you been in the AV industry, would you say?
Actually, February would mark my 5th year in the AV industry.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Cool.
So I'm still, I guess you could say to some people I'm considered still green in some regards, but I think I've been around just long enough to to have made some really great connections, worked for some really great companies, but I also have a lot ahead of me.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, years in the industry doesn't always tell the full story, of course. And yeah, I was surprised. I think that working in the sort of consultant gig, maybe people tend to assume it's guys that have been around forever. But no, that's cool to hear. What was your background? Have you been with Cinero the whole time? Did you have an AV job prior to that?
Sure. So I've kind of been a bit of a trying to think of the term. I wouldn't quite say nomad. More of a journeyman, if you will. I've had the great fortune to work with some really great companies. Starting off as a technician, at a small integration firm, going to a very large integration firm. I spent some time with an architectural firm purely in the consulting role, and just recently transitioned to Cinero, back to more of a consulting and technical side of things, and consulting and sales side of things. So it hasn't been with just Cinero. I've worked for some other, I guess you could call them recognizable names in the industry.
Sure. Yeah. So you've crammed a lot into those 5 years. I remember one of the emails we were bouncing back and forth, kind of coordinating the show. You said something to the effect of everything from a crimper to a consultant, right?
Yeah. I got my, I went to school for AV and sound, which is kind of unheard of. There's not really many programs that do that, but I was lucky enough to get paired up with a trade school that had an AV technician program, and I got out and got a job as an AV tech, and they soon found out how terrible I was at actually being a tech in the field. So they got me behind a computer and behind phones as quickly as they could. So I only spent about 5 or 6 months as a technician.
Gotcha. And, for somebody listening who might be working in a sort of technician role, or maybe, programming or something, but might be interested in kind of venturing into more of a consultant role, or maybe a sales engineering role, what advice would you give them?
That's a great question. So there's a lot of paths you can go down, as you meant, as Nate kind of alluded to earlier. There's kind of a lot of different meanings to that term, but to really take that next step, I think education and knowledge is really key. And there's a lot of avenues you can take towards, whether it be just your certifications, through CTS or through manufacturer specific certifications. Just be proactive in gaining more knowledge about the industry from a technical standpoint, because that kind of stuff is invaluable when you're part of a team effort. It's really invaluable to have that knowledge base and that technical knowledge base that you might not be able to get from a traditional textbook. So really take advantage of certifications from the technical side. I would say from more of the interpersonal side, or more of the people skills side, one of the things I think a lot of people miss is networking. You don't have to be a salesperson to be a networker. You could be a technician, you can be an engineer, you can be a consultant. Just get out there and get involved with your community, your technical community, and go to trade shows if you can, even if it's just the small local ones. Get involved. Know the people out there, even if it's your competitors. You never know who your next, colleague is going to be, or your next boss is going to be. The industry is that small, that it's good to make connections and more importantly, keep connections, make them positive experiences. Again, it's such a small, tight-knit community that burning bridges is not a very good thing to do if you're trying to keep your options open.
Yeah, and that is a perfect segue into Integrate Baltimore and talking more about what that is. I mean, I can speak personally. I think the last 2 jobs I've had in the AV industry were through people that I knew that were already working for the specific organization that I got the job for. So, I totally agree with you there. Networking is huge. And, with that, can you give us some background about, what is Integrate Baltimore? So it's an AV club on LinkedIn. And, how did it get started, or how would you define it, basically?
Sure. So Integrate Baltimore actually started off as the Baltimore AV Club, but that was kind of a boring title, so we kind of shifted things around. But it honestly didn't get started. Had nothing to do with LinkedIn at first. It got started as kind of a way for me to hang out with my buddies who were working at other companies. There's one big trade show every year and maybe a handful of other ones, but this was an opportunity for me to get together with a couple of guys, or it was maybe about 5 or 6 guys at the time, mm-hmm. and meet, have a beer after work, and just talk shop, or not even talk shop, just reconnect. Yeah. So that's kind of where it started. It kind of started as this happy hour thing.
Okay. So you just had a group of friends, and then when did it transition into LinkedIn? At what point? How long had you guys been around before you decided to move things over into social media? Sure.
Well, we had been around, I would say, probably maybe 1 or 2 happy hours, and we knew from the get-go that we wanted to make it a quarterly thing. We, if nothing else, we would get together 4 times a year. And I think after about the second one, when I think there were some manufacturers in town and they came out, and we got to talking, we realized there's potential here for growing this and really making this kind of a continuous thing that kind of has its own heart and soul. So at that point, then I took to LinkedIn because that's the only place you could, one of the few places that you could make a consolidated group where people could kind of join informally and get updates about where the group was going.
Very cool. And so kind of started off as sort of a small, intimate group, and no doubt has grown over time, especially with your presence on LinkedIn. How many active members do you currently have online?
So I think online we have somewhere in the 80, 85 members who are part of the mm-hmm. LinkedIn group.
90. I just pulled it up.
90. There you go. Well, look, even better.
There you go. Hey, it's growing.
It's growing. I don't even know.
Yeah, and then so you said you guys meet. Do you still meet quarterly? And about how many people show up at one of your typical gatherings?
Yeah, we still meet quarterly. We try and make a habit, even if it's not within the quarter. Sometimes the quarter 2 meetup will actually happen a little bit into quarter 3, but we still meet up quarterly, and it's typically anywhere from 25 to 35 people who actually make it out. Mm-hmm. It's after work. People have, like we talked about, people have kids and lives, and some people stay late. So at any given time, it's not the same 25 people. It's always kind of a rotating door of different people who can make it out. So we try and have a core group that's there every time, and then we just hope that other people want to show up.
Yeah, definitely. And are you guys do you always meet up at the same place, or do you kind of have rotating venues? Sort of what's your process for picking a location?
That's a great question. So what we need to do is, historically we've kind of met up at one spot. We did 1 year at one location, and then this year we've done it at another location. I guess 2014 we did it at another location. The tricky part in any metropolitan area is picking a spot that is convenient to everybody. And that's kind of tough because, as I'm sure as you guys know, in your areas, you've got the core, you have the city, and then you've got the suburb around it. And, you've got, here we've got Baltimore and DC. So we've got people in offices kind of all over. So we picked downtown Baltimore City. Location is really key. It's got to have we make sure the place has a parking garage, easily accessible parking garage. And plenty of space to accommodate a large group. We usually do it at like a bar or restaurant that has, it's got to have a good feel to it. We want people that if they're going to spend their time and energy and some money coming out to a happy hour, we want them to feel like they're not going to a hole in the wall. I'm all for your average hole in the wall bar, but when we're trying to have a nice networking event, we try and pick venues that are they're a nice place to be and be seen.
Now, when you mention that, something that just comes to my mind is sponsorship. Do you have any type of if you start getting away from the hole in the wall places to the nicer places, is there a cost associated with setting this up, or do you rely on everybody to just pay their own way for drinks and appetizers, or do you pitch in anything? How does that work?
No, that's a great question, and that's something that's actually on our roadmap for 2015 moving forward is to actually seek out more formal sponsorships. How we've done it in the past has been pretty. I would say I wouldn't call it last minute per se, but I would say it's more, I know a manufacturer or I know a company that's going to be joining, a representative is going to be joining, and we'll do kind of an exchange. If you help out with, appetizers or tabs, we will promote you and your company through the social media avenues. It's just a small give and take. And for manufacturers especially, a lot of times they're getting out there, they're coming to the event and they're seeing all of their integration partners, all of their consultant partners in one setting. So for them, it's kind of like they were gonna be going out to lunch or dinner with one or two of these guys as is. Now they can kind of see all of their partners in one setting. So
kill two birds with one stone, or the whole region rather, right?
And honestly, exactly. We've been really lucky to have some very generous companies. I mean, just to throw out a couple, Crestron and Biamp, two obviously very well-known companies have stepped up and contributed, either picking up the bar tab or picking up the food orders. It's nothing drastic, but it's enough to show that they're invested in the community as well, and they want to see people join and not be like worried like, oh, do I have to worry about picking up tabs and all this stuff? So moving into 2015, our goal is to make it a little more structured so people are a little less hesitant because they're not sure if, what the deal is with, how tabs work and all that stuff. We just want to take all that out of the equation and make it very easy for people to show up.
Yeah. I mean, that's a great point too. Like the dynamic of the reps and the manufacturers that need to, get out there and meet the integrators and even end users, right? I mean, is this specifically integrator driven now, or are there end users that still come, or like what's the primary makeup of the group?
I get that question all the time. It started off as just integrators and consultants, and we said everybody but end users. And the reason we said that is because if you bring an end user to a group, a happy hour with 5 or 6 competitors in one space, that's totally up to you, but you have to let them know that you're kind of bringing them into a bit of a Shark Tank, if you will.
Oh yeah.
But at the same time, there's also this kind of understanding between the people in the group that it's kind of like an unspoken thing. Like, you'd be surprised. People are very respectful of each other and what their position is. When you put everybody in the same setting, it kind of takes away the whole, ego of, this is my job and this is what I do. So, never the two shall meet if we're a competitor. But I kind of equate it to, I think back to I grew up watching Looney Tunes and watching, Sam the sheepdog or Ralph the sheepdog and the wolf. You remember that, where they would
yeah.
Before work they were friends, and then they'd clock in and they'd beat each other up, and then they'd clock out and they'd morning Sam, morning Fred, right? So that's what we kind of look at it as is you can bring your end users. It's really for anybody who wants to be part of a larger community. So that's why we moved to the name Integrate, because we didn't want it just to be an AV club. As we know, AV is part of a larger technology picture. So you can be an IT person, you can be an AV person, you could be a help desk person. It doesn't really matter. If you're involved in technology in some way, you're more than welcome to join us.
Yeah, that's really interesting. So you mentioned a little bit about conflict of interest and potentially rubbing elbows with competitors. Now, has that resulted in negative feedback for the group, or what's the general response from people in your area? Is everybody like kind of open to this thing and accepting of it, or are there people that are kind of like giving you negative responses about doing something like this?
I would say by and large, the response has been nothing but positive, with the exception of some rumblings here or there. Most people that either come to the event, hear about the event, or read about the club in some way, see the benefit rather than the negative of it. So yeah, you're going to be there with your competitors. But if you show up with that attitude, you're not going to have a very good time. I mean, we're there promoting fellowship. So it's really important that if you're going to come with a positive attitude and realize you're being part of a larger community. You're not there to butt heads with people. So we really, so far it's been positive. Like I said, there are people who have said, well, there are things out there and rule books out there that say, any fraternizing with potential competitors should be stayed away from. But I think that type of mentality leads to some of the issues we're having in the industry where the competitors are fighting so hard against each other. It's doing things like doing serious profit margin erosion. The competition is getting so fierce where, well, what if we looked at it a different light? What if we looked at, the market as kind of as a big picture? And is there opportunities for companies, instead of to constantly compete with one another, is there opportunities to actually work together? And actually from this, we've had former competitors find ways to actually use each other's resources when the time is necessary. So let's say if one company gets in a bind and needs a subcontractor, well, they, Johnny met Sammy at the AV club, and he knows that this guy does subcontracting work, and now they've backfilled each other. Or let's say, hey, here's a client, they want a proposal turned around in the next 2 days. I'm up to my ears in backlog. I can't get to it. I know somebody from the AV club who's starting up a company and really could use the work right now. That kind of thing, it's just to me, it's a more positive direction than the latter.
Yeah, I think that's great. And, the benefits to kind of the group as a whole. And I'm curious if you could speak to maybe some of the, on a more personal level, like on a micro level, some of the personal benefits maybe that you or maybe that you've seen other, people in the group experience sort of a direct benefit, maybe make a connection or, find a new gig or something along those lines. I mean, what are some of the personal benefits that somebody might get from joining the community?
That's a great question. I mean, if you are, when we were talking, kind of before this about what are the benefits, it's not like you're going to join the club and you're going to be guaranteed to, you're not going to be guaranteed anything. It really comes down to you get what you give. And so there's no, you don't get a pin, you don't get a ribbon. You might get a free beer and some free food, but really it's a feeling of fellowship that you have with other people who have like interests. We're all in the AV industry because we enjoy it at some level or another. If you don't enjoy it, then maybe you should reconsider what you're doing. But, the biggest benefit I think we see are for the people who are new to the industry, who may not know somebody, who may feel kind of like on an island, who may feel like they're not really sure what they want to do. We do partner with some local schools that actually we see a lot of these students coming out of schools and going right into the AV industry, and we reach out to the career services team there and tell them, have your alumni come out to these events, have your shining stars come out to these events and network. And I'll tell you what, we've had directly from the group, we've had a handful of graduates go from their first meeting or second meeting at the AV club to being placed in a technician role with an AV integration company.
Wow. That's really cool. That's really cool. I actually, I didn't mean to interrupt you there, but it actually brought to mind sort of a question that I didn't even really have in mind ahead of time, but like, what is sort of the makeup of the group in terms of, I think getting people that are new to the industry into your group is obviously like a great opportunity for them. What would you say is kind of the general makeup of the group as far as people that are kind of new to the industry versus kind of the old timers and veterans?
Yeah, so this kind of goes back to the question earlier, which I kind of talked around a little bit, but it's a good mix. I mean, it's you have the old pros who have been in the industry for 20, 30 years. Those are typically the manufacturers, manufacturer reps. Even we have owners of companies coming out, and then we'll have a handful of students or new people, people who just graduated, or new people in the group. And then you've got your kind of like people who've been in the industry for 5, 10, 15 years. So it's a good mix. I mean, every time it's a little bit different. It's not, like I said, we don't have one specific group that comes out every time. It's a different group. If you can make it, you can make it. So it's kind of comprised of all different walks of the AV industry.
Sure.
But we really want to, I tell the careers, I tell the guys that come out, from who aren't working for an AV company yet, who want to get in the industry. I said, this is the first and most important step. You're going to tonight, if you really apply yourself and put yourself out there, you're going to meet manufacturers from all over the area, some of the biggest manufacturers in the industry. You're going to meet integration owners. You're going to meet consultants. As long as you have a business card and as long as you're a friendly person, I've seen people ask for resumes on the spot. And that to me is, you're looking for a job. That's the best way to go.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that, sort of that kind of speaks to that lost art of just kind of getting together and networking in person. We've got so many opportunities now to connect and network online, but really, the value of just getting a group of people together and seeing what happens it's really special. I organize a group here in Los Angeles, completely different, not industry related. It's actually centered around getting together to watch the Denver Broncos play. Big Denver Broncos fan, but
I'm a Ravens fan.
Yeah, oh, are you really? Yeah, I guess I should have assumed that.
I know we got a little bit of a matchup going on this weekend. I was wondering if that
Nate
would come up.
Nate is a Patriots fan. So,
oh boy, look at that. Well,
so we've got all our bases covered here, but I know as speaking from the experience of somebody who's organized a group and gotten, large numbers of people together kind of under a common cause, I know it's not without its challenges. And can you speak maybe to some of the primary challenges that you've faced kind of getting this group up and off the ground?
Time. Time is the biggest thing. It's sort of like having a part-time job on top of being, a full-time sales engineer and a full-time dad of a 1-year-old. Finding the time to coordinate with the venue, market the event, create flyers or marketing material. If we're doing a charitable event, which we do at the holidays every year, then finding what charity we're going to work with, finding out how we're going to position that so we can best maximize the group's attendance to really make an impact. So the biggest challenge is finding time and keeping it going. It's really easy to get things started on LinkedIn or on Facebook and then just, like you said, let that be the end of it. Let the digital experience be the end of it. But making sure that we get people out and getting people out. It takes a lot of direct messaging. I mean, I wish I could say that everybody checked their LinkedIn, group page as much as I did, but I'll put it out there and then I'll go and actually direct email the entire group, some people on a one-to-one basis, and just make sure that they're going to be there. So it's definitely time.
Yeah, the charity thing is very interesting to me. I wasn't aware of this. So what involvement do you have with charities? And then we'll get back to the time thing, because I have another follow-up question on the time commitment too. But
well, this goes back to the original mission, right? So the original mission changed at some point. It went from being just a social club where we got together to saying, here's a group of men and women who all have some sort of success in the AV industry. And why don't we use that? I mean, we live in Baltimore, and Baltimore has kind of a national reputation for not being the most polished city, we're a great city, but there's also, as for as many great things as we have, there's also a lot of people who are in need of help. So what we're trying to do is make the group a more philanthropic venture, if you will. Mm-hmm. So what we're trying to do is pull these people together and say, well, if we can pull these people together, can we do something good with that group of people? So the first year we had our first holiday happy hour. We raised money, clothes, gifts in kind for a group called the Helping Up Mission. They're a homeless shelter for men who've fallen on hard times, be it from addiction or from losing a job. Whatever it is, we raised a bunch of gifts and money for that group, and we donated that. And then just this year, we did a Toys for Tots drive during the holiday happy hour, where if you brought a toy, you basically got a raffle ticket to win some prizes that some manufacturers brought. But we raised over 40 toys, including a full drum kit, for the kids in Maryland who might not get, who might not be lucky enough to get presents on Christmas. So, it's that type of thing that you can leave knowing that if you did nothing else this holiday season, that you at least contributed in some small way.
So you guys are kind of like, more like a Rotary Club or a Lions Club too. I mean, you're making this really into a giving back type of effort, which I wasn't aware of until you just brought up. I think that's really awesome.
And we don't try and pat ourselves on the back for it. I mean, we're not that great at it. We're getting better, but we really want to we don't want this to be. We want this to be a fully dimensional experience when you come out and feel like you're actually giving back to the community. And what better way than to participate in some sort of charitable donation?
Well, I mean, that's a great way to get people to rally around it too. Because I mean, if it was just a happy hour, I mean, you're still going to get people to come out. I think it could still be great. But if there's like a purpose, like a deeper mission or purpose where people are getting plugged into, I think that's the holy grail right there. I mean, that's how to get people involved. I mean, I'm involved with some different things in the community here, and we just did at our local church. We did a food packing event where we just had all kinds of people coming from different schools and football teams and wherever, and people just want to get together and help out and send food off to people who can't afford food. And it was amazing just to see all the people that don't go to this church but just want to come and help other people. So it kind of makes me think of that type of situation.
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head. I mean, isn't it great to see people getting together, and it kind of restores your faith in mankind a little bit when you see people getting together for a bigger cause and not just to for self-fulfilling purposes. It's for a bigger picture.
Yeah, that's great. And now that kind of brings me back to the time thing. So you said time is a big thing. Now I can understand maybe why there's a lot more involved, because it does seem like there's we're just kind of hitting the tip of the iceberg here with the logistics and planning. Mm-hmm. Now that we mentioned some charity work and things like that, where there's maybe some more I's that need to be dotted and T's that need to be crossed to let everything fall into place. What do you think the time commitment is? Like if somebody out there listening to this podcast is thinking, I'd like to start an Integrate Boston or an Integrate Los Angeles or an Integrate Minneapolis or whatever it is.
Sure.
How much time do you think it would take? What commitment are we talking about here? Per week or per month or however you best see fit?
That's a great question. Up into the event, I would say the month of the event. So if you're doing it quarterly, every 3 months, on that third month, you're probably putting in, anywhere from, I think for the first couple weeks, not much, 4 to 6 hours. But as you get closer to the event and you're creating material and you're marketing and you're trying to keep up on all the social media, on those social media sites, you're trying to coordinate if there's a charitable event, you're looking at probably 10 hours a week. I'm lucky enough to have a very talented wife who is a graphic designer who can help me with the marketing material because so she's kind of the behind the scenes unsung hero there. But so it's not a ton, but again, when you're facing only a couple hours of time with your kids when you come home after work, 6 to 10 hours afterwards, especially if you're also let's say you're studying for certifications, it's just not. It can be difficult to come by. So It's not a ton. I would say the best thing you could do if you're looking to start a group is get a couple people together and delegate responsibility. So one person is responsible for the marketing side of things. One person is responsible for coordinating with the venue. One person is responsible for creating the marketing material. If you do that, it can really ease your load a little bit.
Yeah. And so how many people do you have kind of on your team that help out with various aspects of it? I mean, are you a one-man show, or I mean, it sounds like you've got at least a couple people that can pitch in. I know your wife is obviously helping out behind the scenes with graphic design.
Sure.
Do you have like a small army of people that help you out?
There's a small brain trust, I would say, probably 2 or 3 guys who, at different points have different levels of involvement. They're kind of the guys who've been there since day one. When I need something, I'll shoot them over and be like, hey, can you call the restaurant and make sure that we've got the room, the right bar booked or the right space booked. So yeah, I would say it's 2 or 3 guys who've kind of been there since the beginning.
Very cool. So yeah, definitely interested to hear about how kind of the group has evolved and grown over time, and some of the challenges that you've faced. As you guys have grown, have you started to see any attention from like larger industry organizations? I mean, we've talked about manufacturers, but what about, organizations like Infocom or CEDIA? Have you seen any attention from them?
Well, yes and no. I mean, we have, like I said, we've been approached, and people kind of know about us in the area. I mean, Infocom is right in Virginia, so right south of us. And, I had the pleasure of working with some people recently who are part of Infocom's either executive team or certification team. And the reaction from them has been really positive. And what the feedback I've gotten is that there has always been kind of a call for more localized grassroots chapters. I think for an organization like CEDIA or Infocom, it's difficult to manage an effort like that, and do one in Baltimore, Boston, LA, San Francisco, Denver. Mm-hmm. So they really kind of say, well, look, it's a great idea, and we think you guys got the right mission, but it's just going to take people like you to get them started. I mean, it's just not something that's on their roadmap. So
right.
I think it's there. And what we would hope to see is in the future is kind of talking about how Integrate Baltimore and how you can create your own grassroots club on a more on a more national platform, so people can be inspired to do their own. And I think talking with you guys is a great first step into kind of drawing some more attention to creating those, because I think it's really important to realize that we're in such an awesome industry that you've got people in your backyard that share similar experiences that it can't hurt to meet with them and just like I said, share those experiences and create that sense of fellowship.
Yeah, no, I definitely appreciate you coming on the show to spread the message about the group. I really commend you for what you're doing, and I know the time commitment that it can take. Like you said, it's hard to come by that time, even though it might not sound like much. It really is when you're balancing that with the full loads of work and raising children and family life in general. So definitely commend you for your efforts. And happy to see that the group has grown to where it is now. Where do you see yourself in the future? Maybe 1 year from now, maybe 5 years from now?
That's a great question. I think that's a good kind of wrapper to this is, 1 year from now, I would see us hopefully a few more members strong, hopefully continuing to reach out to more charitable organizations in the Baltimore city area, and having some more structure around our corporate sponsorships. So we have kind of a rotating Rolodex, if you will, of people that are willing to help make this a successful event. In the 5-year picture, what I would love to see is the group kind of big enough where the growth of the group is more exponential, and it doesn't take so much direct messaging to drum up attention and to drum up people coming out. It's more like, for us to get 50 people out to an event is really just kind of putting the pieces together and having that interest generated and it kind of growing more organically like that. So that's what I would hope. Although if in 5 years I'm still, doing everything myself or, with the help of one or two people, I'm fine with that too. I mean, we are a non-profit. We don't bring in any revenue. We are not registered for anything at this moment. That might be something we look in down the road, but really just, the goal is to just keep the mission moving.
Yeah, well, we're definitely happy to have you on the podcast and tell your story and hear more about what you're doing with Integrate Baltimore and just get some background about you personally too. Is there, we definitely like to plug social media for our guests when we get a chance. I know you're on Twitter and your group is on LinkedIn. So I guess the best way to find Integrate Baltimore is just to go to LinkedIn and type in Integrate Baltimore, right? That's you don't have a website, do you?
We don't have a website. We rely heavily on social media. So you can either follow us, go to LinkedIn, go to the group section and search for Integrate Baltimore. You can follow us on Twitter at integrate_BMore. We also have a Facebook page, so you can go in and search Facebook for Integrate Baltimore. So we definitely have outlets to be seen.
Great. Well, once again, we just wanted to thank you for taking some time out of your day to speak with us, and we hope that this episode has inspired some listeners out there to get involved with a group that's existing, or maybe even think about starting one up with a few buddies in the AV industry. So hopefully this will catch on. I think that would be a very cool thing.
Absolutely. Thanks, Jason. Thanks, Nate. I really appreciate you guys taking time to talk with me.
All right, so that's a wrap for our interview there with Ernie. We hope you enjoyed it as much as we did. Really had fun sitting down and chatting with him. And again, if you want to just review any notes from this episode or that PDF that we're going to put together, it's kind of a cheat sheet to get you going on starting your own Integrate club. We would encourage you to check out avshoptalk.com/episode 12, and that'll all be up there for you.
Yeah, and if you enjoyed this podcast and you want to show some small token of appreciation, you can always head over to iTunes and give us a review and rate an episode or give a written review, and we'd really appreciate that.
Yes, most definitely. We absolutely would. So one more time, just thank you so much for listening, and we look forward to the next episode when we'll sit down and talk shop with you once again.
Shop Talk podcast is produced independently by Nate Schneider and Jason Griffin. Musical contributions have been provided by Colin Owens. Voiceover contributions have been provided by John Perry.